Here.
Nargi.
Here.
Four and present.
Okay. You've received the July 10th minutes. Are there any corrections on that, Mr. Campbell?
I move those minutes be approved as communicated.
You have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I guess nobody's opposed. Okay, let's see. Presentation and disposal of claims.
There are none.
Presentation of petitions and communications.
There are none.
Reports of city offices on file in the city clerk's office.
Fleet maintenance monthly June, police department June, Lafayette renew monthly June, waterworks department monthly June.
Okay, all these reports are on file at the clerk's office and can be viewed during regular business hours. There are no ordinances for second reading, so ordinance for first reading.
Ordinance 2017-26, an ordinance amending the Lafayette Municipal Code to add new chapter 7.13, regulation of traffic in a residential complex.
Mr. Campbell?
I move for passage of ordinance 2017-26
Mr.
on
Reynolds?
first reading.
A second.
Okay. Police chief is going to speak to this.
Good morning, or I'm sorry, good evening. It's been a long day.
Yeah, long day.
Patrick Flanley, Chief of Police.
together.
I believe, as Mr. Chosnick explained the other night, what this ordinance will allow us to do is to allow the police department to enter into agreements with apartment complexes, and it defines what a residential complex is going to be, what the size of it will be, that will enable police officers to enforce moving violations on those properties, which is currently not allowed the way statute is. So this is a law that was passed at the state level last July, which requires us to pass this ordinance here locally in order to be able to enter into these agreements.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from council
I
members?
think Mr. Brown brought up a good point last at the caucus concerning, will this put any stress on the number of officers that are on the street?
No, sir. Police officers are already engaging in activities inside these complexes. They already patrol through these areas regularly. It'll actually give us another tool that we don't currently have, in that if we witness an infraction such as speeding or running stop signs, which are the two most common moving violations that officers will witness, it'll allow them the ability to write a state citation for that. It has to be an electronic ticket, since we issue electronic tickets through the Lafayette Police Department. So we would be able to do that now, where currently we would not be able to. I think it is the speeding and the moving violations, such as running stop signs, are primarily the number one and number two complaints that we get from citizens, whether they're in apartment complexes or out in neighborhoods. Apartment complexes like that, too, typically have the most densely populated areas, particularly high numbers of children as well.
Do we currently have any apartment complexes that are waiting to get into these agreements with us?
We do have a couple that we've had talks with, but we don't have any agreements right now. So the first step is to get the ordinance passed. Once the ordinance is passed, then our community outreach folks will reach back out to some of those areas to see if this is something that they're interested in. If they're not interested, and it's completely up to them, if they're not interested in it, then they don't need to enter into any type of agreement with us.
Not charge a fee for.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from the council?
Is there any rush to get this through? I mean, if it would, should we suspend the rules in order to get this in effect sooner?
I would appreciate it if you would. I don't see anything controversial about it. I mean, certainly up to your discretion, but this is certainly something that we'd like to get into place as soon as we can, particularly
Have
for,
it in place before school started, too.
well, that'll be fast. I don't think we'll have to, I don't think we'll get them done that fast. And the complexes that do enter into this agreement will be required to ensure that all of the signage is appropriate and meets code. So that'll take a little bit of time on their part as well. But again, another reason why we might want to get it moving as quick as we can.
Will it be city signage then versus the complex?
The
signage?
complexes will be, it'll be up to them. So they'll have to to acquire the signage themselves. I mean, we could probably help with that if we needed to, but.
Okay, any questions or comments from the audience on this ordinance? Any other council questions? Okay, will the clerk conduct a roll call vote for ordinance 2017-26?
Heidi?
Aye.
Clinker?
Aye.
Reynolds?
Aye.
Campbell?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Allersmeyer?
Aye.
Williamson?
Aye.
Downing?
Aye.
Ordinance passes 8-0.
Okay, ordinance 2017-27.
I think, yeah,
Oh,
Mr. Campbell wants
Mr.
to
Camp- Mr.
make a
Campbell.
motion.
I move for suspension of the rules to consider ordinance 2017-26 on second and final reading.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
You need to take a roll call vote to make sure it's unanimous, and then you can.
So I take a
Suspend.
roll call vote on this motion?
Motion to suspend the rules.
Okay,
uh-huh.
so will the clerk conduct a roll call vote on this amendment?
Heidi?
Aye.
Clinker?
Aye.
Reynolds?
Aye.
Campbell?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Allersmeyer?
Aye.
Williamson?
Aye.
Downing?
Aye.
Motion approved.
Okay,
Now you can.
now
have
we
a
actually
have
motion
it
on, motion
Heard a
on.
second time. uh-huh.
Okay, so we need a motion for, it would be the second reading of this ordinance. Mr. Clinker
I move we hear it on second reading.
and Mr. Heidi.
Second.
Okay. Will the clerk conduct a roll call vote on the second reading of ordinance 2017-26?
Heidi?
Aye.
Clinker?
Aye.
Reynolds?
Aye.
Campbell?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Allersmeyer?
Aye.
Williamson?
Aye.
Downing?
Aye.
Ordinance 2017-26 passes on second reading.
Okay, I've never done that before. Now I
that's the
learned how
first,
to
yeah,
do
I
that,
think you
okay.
did nicely done.
Okay, ordinance 2017-27.
An ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance Tippecanoe County, Indiana, Uzo Amendment Number 88, Transient Rentals.
Okay, Mr. Brown?
Madam President, I move that we hear and approve ordinance 2017-27 on first reading.
And
Second.
Second, okay. Okay, Mr. Thomas?
Good evening. The transient rental issue has been with us for an extended period of time. The ordinance committee has met several times recently, gone through many iterations, discussed many different issues. What you have before you is a consensus that has their blessing. It has been presented at public hearings, the Area Plan Commission, and there have been numerous other opportunities for public involvement in that process. What you have here is very different than what began with this process. The ordinance committee looked at several different ways of approaching the issue, and what is before you today, we feel works very well.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions or concerns?
I have
from
a
council?
question,
Okay.
Mr. Chosney. Does this have to wait until it's read a second time in order to go into effect?
Yes, I mean, well, no, this is a zoning amendment, so it goes into effect if you pass it now.
Right,
It
thank
doesn't
you.
require a second reading.
Any other questions or comments from council? Questions or comments from anybody in the audience concerning this ordinance? No, hearing none, will the clerk conduct a roll call vote on ordinance 2017-27?
Heidi?
Aye.
Clinker?
Aye.
Reynolds?
Aye.
Campbell?
Aye.
Brown?
No.
Allersmeyer?
Aye.
Williamson?
Aye.
Downing?
Aye.
Ordinance passes 7-1.
Okay, next on the agenda is ordinance 2017-28.
An ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance of Tippecanoe County, Indiana to rezone certain real estate from R1 to R1B 204 Walker Lane, Habitat for Humanity of Lafayette petitioner.
Okay, Mrs. Williamson
I hear we vote and approve on ordinance 2017-28.
and Mr.
Second.
Downing. Okay, great.
Good evening, my name is Ryan Munden with Riley, Teeter, and Schreier, here on behalf of the petitioner Habitat for Humanity. This is a request to rezone 1.07 acres at the northwest corner of Powder House Lane and Walker Lane from R1 to R1B. We've also filed a subdivision which consists of 7 lots. The request before you this evening to rezone is for 6 of those 7 lots. The 7th lot will remain R1, and there are no current plans to develop that lot. The original request to rezone was for all 7 of the lots, which consisted of 1.41 acres from R1 to R1B. This petition would only apply to 7 of those original, or we're only requesting a subdivision of 7 compared to the original 8. That original proposal would have resulted in 8 homes. The current proposal would only have 6. Again, in addition, the original proposal would have included keeping the existing house on one of the lots. The current proposal would include tearing down that house. The houses that will be built will be approximately 1,100 square feet, including an attached garage. This area has moved from well and septic to city and sewer, so we anticipate there being additional building in this area moving forward. Currently, there are 5 or 6 houses being built in the area by the petitioner, and 2 are currently under construction. We received a favorable APC staff report and an 11-3 vote in favor of recommending approval of this rezone petition, and we would respectfully request your approval this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You mentioned that it was going from 1.7 acres to 1.3?
1.41 acres to 1.07. So originally, we were rezoning 1.41 acres, and that would have included 8 R1B lots. And now we're rezoning 6 of 7 subdivision lots, keeping 1 R1 and 6 R1B.
Why is that one going to stay the same at R1?
It's currently behind another house, which I believe you'll be hearing from that owner shortly. But the original plan was to develop the property behind that existing house, which is outside of the subdivision, to, I believe it was at least 2 lots.
Yeah.
But since that's behind an existing house outside of the subdivision, the plan now is to leave it alone until down the road.
And those 6 homes will be Habitat for Humanity homes?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from council members? Questions or comments from the audience? Just please state your name and address, please.
My name's Ann Miller, and I live at 2144 Powder House Lane.
Okay.
And this changing of zoning is behind and beside my house. So we've had several, at the Area Plan Commission meetings, they proposed initially the 8, then now they're down to 6, and we've been told 5 if they don't change anything. And one person from Habitat told one of my neighbors that they were only going to build 4. Now, this is pretty confusing to the people who live there. These houses are going to be set on 5-foot lot lines. I mean, 5 feet to the next lot line. And it's ridiculous. It is from the concrete on the blocks, but if you go up to where the windows and the siding and insulation, they're not quite 5 feet. That's a lot of house, very close together. And in the ones that are already existing, last April, on a Sunday evening, where people were preparing for church or for school the next day, I drove down the street, and not even counting the end house, which is on Elston Road, there were 17 cars. And only 2 of the Habitat houses were occupied at that time. 17 cars. That's a lot of cars. Now, they're building these so close together, and with this amount of cars, a fire truck's not going to get there. One neighbor can't get his RV out without calling or knocking on doors to get people to move their cars so we can get down the street. How's a school bus going to get in there? I mean, we have one now, that'll start this month sometime. But when you've got 17 cars parked there early in the morning, where are you going to go? They said, the mayor said they'd put parking on one side. Well, that was several months ago, I heard that. Where's the truck painting the yellow line? To make it more feasible. Now they want to put, I don't know how many houses. You give them the zoning, they'll do what they want. And that's the bottom line. They'll do what they want. And we don't want that. We're filing for adverse possession for part of the land because we've maintained it for 40 years. So probably won't have any trouble getting it. But that's only going to secure just a little bit of land, just a few feet. The rest of this are all these people crammed in together. If you got 17 cars with 4 houses, how many more are you going to have with the next 6 that are coming in? Or however many they build. It's just ridiculous. And why zone 1.4 acres, 1.107? Why? Just don't need that many houses. 4 is a doable number. If this was being built around any of your homes, I'm sure you'd feel the same way. And most of the people out there are not on city services. Just some of the people on Powder House Lane. We were not even offered that. I'd like the same deal Habitat gets. It's a lot less than the $17,500 we were told. It's only around $8,000. We should be grandfathered in, and we're not. Tony says if you can get 4 or 5, well, guess what? The 4 or 5 were offered the thing, and they got on when it was put in there. We weren't offered that. So if they're going to continue, you know, I'd like some of the perks too. But I'd also like the zoning to stay the same to stop this. One of the families would like to reclaim the property next door and not let them tear the house down because her great-grandparents built it. And so it's just, you put poor people in these houses and they sound good, 1,100 square feet. They have a 1-car garage, and most people have 2 cars. And most people move in these with more belongings that fit in this little house. So they end up with their garage full of stuff and their car in the driveway and the second car in the street. This is happening over and over and over and over. And nobody listens. Nobody listens to the people who live there. People are already talking about putting their houses up for sale. They don't want to live there. Not if all this is going to happen. Walker Lane is a very narrow lane. Part of it is an alley. And they only paved it because the ambulance couldn't find the person that was sick once. So to us, it just seems ridiculous. I was a realtor for 12 years here in the city, and I don't think putting people on that small of a piece of land and that many, that close together is a good thing. Ever. You have no privacy. You want privacy, you build a privacy fence. And we've never had to have that, to have privacy, because we live in a nice, quiet area. Neighbors get along, and nobody ever needed that. But you stack 5 more, 6 more houses in there, and everybody be putting up privacy fence that has to. And the people down the street, they don't even have anywhere to get behind their house because they're so close together. One burns, they'll all burn. And then whoever approved this they'll feel very sad about it because fire trucks won't get down that street. Not unless they change some stuff fast. And every day it sits there, the danger grows.
Thank you for your comments. Does anybody from the council have questions?
Yeah, we got the police chief, or fire chief back there. Could we ask him about the getting down that road?
Pardon?
The fire chief, you said that a fire truck can't get down that road.
Not when there's 17 cars in the street, they can't.
But this is in your addition? 17 cars were in your addition for
Yeah,
what?
just from Elston Lane to the first, Walker Court makes a horseshoe, and to the first part of Walker Court, I counted 17 cars.
Richard Doyle, Fire Chief. All the city streets are built to the same standards, same width for parking, and I don't regulate parking on the street, but the engineer department basically regulates the width of the street. So if they're within reason, then like I said, I don't control the parking on it, but the streets are built big enough.
Our street is just a one-lane street, okay? It never was a two-lane street. They put a line down the middle of it just so it'd be funny, but it's not a two-lane street.
And we would have to deal with the parking issue when it arises, if we have a problem, if we had a complaint.
Too late then.
From a neighborhood.
Somebody would be dead or
We'd have to
burn
do
up.
that, yeah.
Chief, have you had calls on that road? I mean, are you familiar with the road, and have you had, you know?
Yeah.
Have you been able to access it to this point?
Yeah, we've never had a problem out there. Anytime there's obviously growth, it could create a different problem, but as we see a problem exist or come up, then we would have to deal with that with, maybe, parking just on one side of the street or something like that. Anytime an addition like this sees growth, then there could be a parking problem, so we would have to look at it when and if it exists, to look at coordinating with some of the other city offices to deal with the parking. If there needs to be just parking on one side of the street, then we would work with the engineering department and some of those other departments to get that done. So ultimately, I wouldn't know if there's going to be a problem until it exists out there. Because the streets, if they're building new streets in an area, they're built to a certain standard. If that street already exists in there, and then there's more parking that could, get into that area, then it could create a problem that we would have to address.
And if the water's there, there's a hydrant there, right, for you guys to hook up
Yeah.
to? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments or questions from the audience or council members?
I'd just like to clear up one thing. As a member of the APC, I was there several times, and most of the traffic, cars that are parked there are from construction workers during the day. I was not there in the evening, but during the day, there were several vehicles, but it was they were under construction.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to comment, please? Please state your name and address.
Yes, hi. I'm Alpha Spalding. My address is 2200 Powder House Lane. My house is on the corner of Powder House and Walker Lane, across Walker from this property that they're talking about building all these houses. I'd like to ask the fire chief, because I don't think that since they came for me last January and had to come down that street, that the fire department hasn't had to come down that street, or the ambulance. I took down a straight ladder in my garage back in January, and they were there then. And I doubt very much that unless it was when I've not been home, that they've been down that street since the 5 houses that have been built smack to one another at the beginning of Elston Road, and how that it has created now as far as traffic being parked. There is at least 1 or 2 vehicles for each one of those new houses. Now, the last one is not occupied as yet. They're still trying to take care of that. As some of us neighbors told them, if they're going to build houses in that particular area, they better build up the land because it was swamp before that they started building. That's why that the house that was sitting there got demolished, because it was just totally damaged from water, so much water. That's beside the point. They've built the houses. Now they're still trying to deal with that to get it for the people moving in. If they do as many homes across from Walker Lane, from my driveway, as what they're talking about, that's going to be an extra issue, because just as Mrs. Miller said, Walker Lane is not as wide as Powder House Lane. And at the entrance for it, from Beck Lane, as she said, they paved it because of the one issue of the ambulance not being able to find the person because it wasn't labeled at that time, because it was an alley. It's really an alley. So they went ahead and put Walker Lane sign out there on Beck for that reason. But when you meet someone in that particular area, somebody has to get over to the side, and it's the one coming out that has to get over to the side, because there's a fence there for the property that is at the start of Beck and Walker Lane there. It's just no way to get around it. So you put more houses there, of course you've got at least 1, and usually 2, more vehicles per home. At the end of Powder House Lane, past the Millers, there's 2 more homes, and then you're into a woods. It's a dead-end road. So then you're putting, it really is a hazard. I mean, no other way to say it. Those homes that they built, they're lovely to see, to look at, but like Mrs. Miller said, there's absolutely, those people have no privacy. Those houses are so close together, they could reach their hand out and shake hands with one another. It's a fire hazard. If one of them catches on fire, it's going to be very hard for not a next house to catch on fire that's right next to it. That's going to be very hard to not happen.
Thank you for your comments. These houses each had an attached garage, you said?
Yes, there's a driveway and an attached garage, so even if each house had 2 cars, they won't be parking on the street.
So it's a 2-car attached garage?
1-car attached garage.
1-car attached garage, and then,
Driveway.
and then you can park in the driveway.
Photos I'm
So
passing
each
out
house
are
has 2 parking spots?
Correct.
That are off the road, okay?
at least, I'm not sure you can get a third car into the, probably one in the garage and one in the driveway, so yeah, 2.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Everyone's younger than you are.
Madam President, also, the trash travels those streets once a week also, which is about the same size of weight-wise. I believe the chief can answer that as a fire truck.
Photographs of Mrs. Miller's property. I think they speak for themselves. Photographs I passed out first are what are going in, so I believe they're a nice addition to the area. So with respect to any comment about whether or not the quote-unquote poor people can take care of their properties, I think Mrs. Miller's photographs of what the area currently looks like I said, speak for themselves.
Call for question.
I wonder if I could have the petitioner maybe answer a couple other concerns they had with, would you realize that they might drive parking on one side of the street? Is the water hookups the same for everybody? Kind of some of the items she brought up. Can you address some of those?
I mean, with respect to the parking, I mean, each house has 2 parking spots.
I mean, if there's an issue on the parking on the streets, the city would regulate that, the parking commission, the engineer's office, and we've done that on a lot of streets, parking on only one side of the street in order to give adequate room. So that's nothing that any private citizen, they can request it of the parking commission, and then the engineer's office studies it, determines that the road's too narrow. And they look for issues like school buses, fire trucks, garbage trucks. So it would be addressed if it is a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wondered if he wanted to address that it could affect that, and his houses would be affected by parking only on one street as well, the houses they're talking about.
The houses being
Yeah.
built, whether they'd be
Yeah.
affected by parking on
Yeah,
one
I
side
mean,
of the
they,
street?
yeah, if that could be a likely outcome.
I don't think they would,
Yeah.
these houses would be affected if
Okay.
there was a requirement that parking be on one side of the street now. With respect to concern about chain reaction fire, I mean, the setbacks and the lot sizes are, I mean, that's our zoning ordinance. The subdivision complies with those requirements. So if to the extent there's a concern about fire, that's really a problem with the ordinance, not this subdivision specifically, so.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments concerning this ordinance? Okay, let's have a roll call vote.
Oh, I think there's somebody else.
Oh,
that wants to speak.
one more, okay.
Oh, we have one more comment, I think.
I'm Legina James, and I live at 2504 Kickapoo Drive. And I agree with what they're saying. However, I don't doubt the fire trucks and everything else getting down those roads. This is a little bit more personal for me, because on Powder House Lane, my great-grandparents owned a lot of Elston. And my grandmother's house is sitting on the lot where they want to build those houses. I don't want to see it tore down. It's historical. And it means a lot to, my family. I've got lots of memories there. My grandmother lived there after my great-grandparents lived there. They built the house. I have a picture of my grandmother up on the roof as they were building the house. And that's my biggest concern. Yes, it is a personal thing, and it means the world to me not to see history gone. And having all those houses built around in that same area is going to take away from the countryside, the history of it, the old powder houses that used to be there. It just tears me up to see just that house standing, when at one time there used to be 3 little houses right next to it that my mother and I lived in at one time.
Who owns the house currently?
I was told that it was bought and then donated to Habitat.
When they bought it.
But yes, I was told that it
Who
was.
owned it prior to it being?
Do you remember the guy's name that bought it the first time?
When was the last it was in your family?
My great-grandparents passed away in 75 and 76, and then my grandmother took over the house, and she passed away in 2004. Then it went to my mother, my aunt, and 2 of my uncles, who one of them was deceased, so then his portion went to his children and grandchildren. And unfortunately, none of them could afford to, keep up on the house, and,
It's been vacant, or has someone?
it's been vacant since the person that bought it, supposedly he borrowed the money from somebody and then lost out on it. And now he is deceased, and the house has been vacant ever since. And it's, like I said, it's still standing there. I drive by there all the time. I was just by there today. And just to see that house, I can tell you every square inch of that house, just what it looks like on the inside. I have been trying to find a way to even just go in to look at it again. It hurts to know that they want to tear history down. It was built in 1941. It was built during the war.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have one more thing I'd like to say. He showed you a picture and said, these are nice-looking little houses. Well, not 5 of them squished together, they're not. And the other thing is they don't match the continuity of the neighborhood. When you build something in a neighborhood, you try to, make sure that you fit into your neighborhood. These don't fit into anybody's neighborhood. And, even if they only built 4, it would still be crowded. So, I think the continuity part of the neighborhood should hold some effect on this, so that you don't have all these squished together houses. Everybody has a nice sized lot, and backyard, front yard, side yard. And most of these will have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we ready for the vote?
Call for question.
One more comment? Okay.
Just had to put a Perry Barber, 3700 Redbud Avenue. I just had to put a positive spin onto this, but I have to say one thing. I feel so sorry for you, and I know where you're coming from, because I had personal friends had the same story before, and I know where you're coming from, and my heart goes out to you on that one. But for the other part of the program, I think this is going to be great for the ones that really needs a little pick me up, and I think that's going to make the community look great for that end of town. And you should be proud that you could say that's where my grandmother started. You get to just still love that story, and I'm in favor of this.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, will the clerk conduct a roll call vote on ordinance 2017-28?
Heidi?
Aye.
Clinker?
Aye.
Reynolds?
Aye.
Campbell?
Aye.
Brown?
No.
Allersmeyer?
Aye.
Williamson?
Aye.
Downing?
Aye.
Ordinance passes 7-1.
Okay, next on the agenda is Resolution 2017-18.
A resolution to amend the comprehensive plan for Tippecanoe County to include the 2045 Metropolitan Plan.
Okay, Mr. Campbell?
I move for passage of Resolution 2017-18 on first and final reading.
Okay, and Mr. Reynolds?
I second that.
Okay, Mr. Thomas?
Good evening again. What you have before you is the 7th Long-Range Transportation Plan that has been adopted in this community, the first being 1978. This plan draws from those plans, the list of projects that is shown on the map, and in list form at the end of the executive summary that you all have, is a product of the previous planning efforts. It's a product of your staff. It's a product of many hours of involvement by your engineering staff to develop a list in conjunction with the other jurisdictions in this community. One of the other inputs into trying to figure out what the needs are going to be in 2045 is to take a look at where people are living now, where we anticipate they will be living in 2045, where we feel jobs will be in 2045. We worked with your economic development departments, we worked with the Greater Lafayette Commerce in reviewing where we feel the community will grow. We know where the zoning is, we know where the comprehensive plan shows the land use to be, we know where the water and sewer pipes are. We're able to take that information, use it in a traffic forecasting software. We can actually forecast the traffic volumes in the future, see where there is congestion, and anticipate where there are going to be problems. This community has been tremendously successful since the first long-range transportation plan. All of the jurisdictions have worked very well, primarily because you all work well together. This plan just continues that effort. I have a couple of unbound copies of the plan. If you would like, just let me know.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from council members?
I have a quick
Do
question.
we have to sign those copies out? I mean, 2045, don't plan to be here.
Neither do I.
I do.
I have a quick question about south of 38. It said capacity and complete streets. Does that mean there's a plan to have those be able to handle more traffic? The red that looks like South Street and Main Street inside of the parkway?
There is a conceptual need. There are not plans on the shelf.
Okay.
There is just a conceptual need of this before 2045. If we want to alleviate a problem, there will need to be addressed. On South Street, everybody agrees that the curb line's not going to change much. What's in the actual pavement may be realigned, so you have a center lane left turn, but those specific design issues have not been committed to paper yet.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions from council? Any questions or comments from the audience on this resolution? Okay, will the clerk conduct a roll call vote on Resolution 2017-18?
Heidi?
Aye.
Clinker?
Aye.
Reynolds?
Aye.
Campbell?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Allersmeyer?
Aye.
Williamson?
Aye.
Downing?
Aye.
Resolution passes 8-0.
Okay, any reports of standing committees? Okay, reports of special committees? Reports by the mayor, he's not here tonight. Reports of councilmen? Okay, now is time for public comment. If anyone from the audience would like to speak, please state your name and address, and you're limited to 3 minutes, and please be respectful and courteous to everyone.
I'm Joanne Messing. I live at 1213 South 3rd. I'm representing Karen Gray. She wasn't able to come tonight. And this is in regard to reduction of firework, the 11 days. And so we're working on that through next door. And a lot of people are objecting to the 11 days.
Okay, thank
I
you for
would
your,
sympathize with those folks that it's too lengthy a period of time for fireworks.
I have not stopped hearing about that yet.
Right.
yes.
And I don't know if you would refer that to a committee or what would happen, but I think that it should be examined.
We're constrained by state statute that had a pretty good fireworks lobby to, our ordinance restricts it as much as the state statute allows us to.
The answer.
You
Thank
might
you.
want to make sure you and your neighbors contact your state representatives. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, any other comments or questions from the audience? Okay.
My name is Bill Miller. I live at 8143 Oak State Road 25 North. And I'm here just to bring you an update on the stone quarry. No, it's not dead. It's been about a year since I've been here, but it's still very much alive. Right now, we are waiting to go to the BZA. Back in February, stone companies, they filed, but they didn't complete their paperwork. A couple months later, they add a little bit more to it, just to kind of tease us, and still did not complete. Till they complete their paperwork, we don't go. And my understanding is right now is, I believe they're in Lafayette trying to get in little pots and meeting people, trying to get people on their side. So I am here just to let you know, we're still here, we're still fighting, and we have not gone away, and it's still very much alive. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Still, they should have used the same excuse you used that the dog ate your homework.
I think that would work. Thank you.
Any other comments from the audience? Any public comment?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yep.
Okay, there we go.